You know, in the Marine Corps, there's a saying that instructors or senior Marines love to tell younger dudes, oh, you think you've made it. You think you rate. You think you've done X or you're good enough, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's mostly because it's pretty commonplace for Marines, I guess, to go to schooling. Courses, kind of finish those courses, feel accomplished and happy that they finished them, feel like they've done something and can now advance in their career or in their battalion or unit, wherever they're at. And then usually right after that, they go to their new unit or the new wherever they're going after they finish their course. And the Marines at the new place quickly remind them that he hasn't made it. He's in the Marine Corps. This is not a happy-go-lucky place. You better not think that you rate anything. I think one of the most notable places that this happens to, that I think every Marine can attest to, is the mentality that you have going from boot camp to ITB. I'm not sure about MCT, but ITB definitely. And then the mentality that you have from ITB to going to the fleet is not the same. All right, it is not the same. Just to explain, after you go to boot camp, you kind of feel like you've made it. You're a Marine. You kind of, even though you're private first class, you're one of the boys, right? You're one of the guys. You're a Marine now. They quickly remind you in ITB that you ain't nothing but a fucking boot. You are nothing but a boot, a private first class, bottom of the totem pole. And at least in ITB, everybody's infantry instructors are infantry instructors, so they all have been to combat, have seen combat. They all tell these stories, and they haze you there. The hazing is kind of what's to be expected in the fleet, and I think that's why I feel like I didn't have this feeling going to the fleet, because they already hazed you in ITB, and they tell you like, hey, just wait till you get to the fleet. Those senior lance corporals, they're gonna fix you right up, kid. But the instructors really kind of paint a good picture of what you're gonna be walking into once you get to the fleet. It's pretty funny because they're right. They're definitely right. Like I said, all the instructors in ITB, I'll probably honestly make a whole video about ITB and then MCTs. So if you guys don't know, ITB is Infantry Training Battalion. If you're an infantryman, you go there. Everybody else goes to MCT. So if you're not infantry, you go to MCT, and they're just schools to teach you about being in infantry. Obviously, the one for the guys that are not infantry is a lot shorter, and ITB is a lot longer. It's not too much longer. It's only like a month longer for the guys that are infantry, and that's just your schooling for infantry, because, you know, every Marine is a rifleman, so everybody needs to know stuff about the infantry. But infantry guys know more because they're in the infantry, right? But the instructors are all hilarious. I'll tell one hazing story from ITB because I want to save them for the ITB video that I do. But let's see, which one should I do though? All right, I'll do this one just because this one's a little bit shorter. I remember we were all in formation, the entire company, so 3 platoons, waiting for our instructors to come out, and one of the kids in a different platoon was he had a dip in. So the dip is just tobacco that you put in your lip. He had a dip in formation. One, you're not supposed to dip because you're in formation. You're not supposed to dip in uniform, I think is what they say. I don't know how true that is, but you're definitely not supposed to dip because you're a student at ITB. So instructor comes out, he sees him, he's like, all right, you buddy, come out here. He has him take out his whole, I don't even think you're supposed to buy tobacco as a student, is what it was. But the instructor makes him take out his whole dip can and then line his whole mouth up from top to bottom and stand in formation the entire, I don't know how long I don't even know what we were doing that day that we were in formation. Probably like 15-20 minutes of standing in formation at parade rest. The kid was, I don't know if he threw up in formation. I don't think he threw up in formation. He probably went to throw up in his barracks like right after, but it was disgusting. The instructor was, I'm not gonna say his name, but this dude was a dick, man. He was pretty crazy actually, but he had tack marks. He had like tally marks on his finger from his like tattoos on his finger from his time in Afghanistan. And it was how many Mike kills he got, so grenade launcher kills he got, which that's crazy in itself. It just says like, oh, he's killed so many people. I don't even want to say whatever, bro. You know, it's crazy. But besides that, the instructors definitely prepare you for your time in the fleet, which is just going to be as a boot. If you don't know, a boot is just a new guy, new joint in the infantry or the Marine Corps. Prepares you for the time as a boot in the fleet, which you're just going to be getting yelled at, you're going to be getting hazed, and you're going to be treated like a child. So to get it started, the very first week in the fleet, I think I have actually a pretty unique point of view, but interesting point of view, because at the same, I was a boot just like everybody else, and usually like most people would in the infantry. Then you are a senior, so then you have your own boots, and how you kind of see how you're supposed to manage it and see how you're supposed to talk to them. Some things I did right, some things I did wrong, you know. But to get it started, the very first week in the fleets, like I said, your instructors definitely get you prepared for it. I think they should get you prepared a little bit more, because they have you leaving ITB with a high fade, which is good. But your senior lance corporals are not going to be happy about it, because they're going to want you to have a nice high and tight. If you don't know what a high and tight is, go look it up. It is the most military haircut that you can have. It's that state trooper haircut, you know, like the really high up fade, and you only have like the top patch of your head. That's the high and tight. And then if you usually the punishment if you do anything wrong with your hair is good. You don't want a high and tight, go bald. So you have a choice between having a high and tight and being bald. It's not much of a choice, because if they feel like you're choosing to go bald because you don't like a high and tight, they'll just tell you to have a high and tight. It is a little bit different though, because I have seen platoon commanders come out and say, no, you can't have a high and tight because it's too eccentric, which means it's just too flamboyant or too extra, basically. Maybe not too flamboyant, just too extra. It really depends on your leadership, but for the most part, that guy was, I think, just trying to go against the grain. But he did get away with making his platoon not have high and tight, so I don't know like what he was going for, to be honest. Besides that, you can definitely expect to get yelled at a lot. Like I said, you're gonna be running everywhere. I remember straight from ITB. So when you go in from ITB to your first unit, which is the fleet, right? They're gonna be transporting all of your stuff from ITB in sea bags and all your kind of military bags over to the fleet, and then they transport them, put them in your barracks building, usually all together. So you're gonna have to go in there and find your stuff and then take it to your room separately or by yourself. I remember the first day I was there, when we first got there, it was raining. My parents were still waiting for us to get back. They couldn't really mess with us too much when we first got there, like the senior lancers that were just waiting for the boots to get there. Like, it was dark, fucking jury day. It was honestly, it had that same vibe as like going to boot camp for the first time and like seeing your drill instructors, because like, oh man, like about to come over and get my ass beat basically. But yeah, they were all waiting for us. Like, you know, they had I mean, obviously they're trying to be tough, trying to look tough. Some of them were probably pretty tough, to be honest, but they had all of our sea bags in the middle. So the barracks are set up like kind of like think of like motel buildings. So like the doors are on the outside and you just go into your room, and they're, you know, everything's basically outside, and in the middle is like a common area. So our sea bags were in there. For some reason they were on the third floor, and one of the senior lancers, I assume it wasn't a corporal, it could have been a fucking private that got demoted, decided he didn't like them there and threw somebody's sea bag off the third deck, which was kind of a dick move. I had like a laptop in mine, so I was thinking, I was like, damn, like I hope it's not my shit, man. That's kind of fucked up. But besides that, they you go from ITB being at your school to your fleet. So you talk to your platoon command. No, you talk to your first sergeant first, your company first sergeant. You could possibly talk to your company commander. I doubt it though. You'll probably see him the next day at like some kind of formation where he comes out and just like, hey guys, we have a bunch of new guys around. Make sure you treat them right. Make sure you take care of your Marines to the left and right of you. Hoorah, blah, blah, blah. They'll say that whole thing. But all the senior dudes just basically know, like, all right, we're gonna haze the shit out of these guys, all right? So you get there from ITB, you talk to your first sergeants, you probably talk to your company guns or company gunny, and from there they'll probably divvy you guys up into your platoons. Oh, something I didn't mention, I was actually extremely lucky in the fact that I and the kids in my ITB class were all sent to like like 60 of us had to have been, okay, maybe like 40 of us from the same ITB class to the same company, because they were getting ready to deploy in about like 3 to 4 months, I think, from the time I got there. So we got really lucky where like it was like a lot of us boots basically at a company together, which is pretty chill. They already had 2 boot drops before me, so like there were boots that had come a month before me and then like a month before that, right? And those guys ended up being my friends. Love them, blah blah blah. But so the first boot drop, this is what they're called boot drops for the senior dudes. The first boot drop was just 2 boots to each platoon. So there's 4 platoons in the company. Weapons platoon doesn't count for the boot drops. I think they have their own boot drops that they pick from, but it was 2 boots to each platoon. So there's about like 30 dudes ish in each platoon. Now, when my friends came on their boot drop, and it was just like each platoon had 2 dudes or 3 dudes, That means it was like 30 senior dudes or 20 senior dudes for 3 boots. And what happens is the boots always stand fire watch. So it ended up being that my friends, I'm not gonna name them in the video, but let's say Chip, Zach, and Matt. Chip, Zach, and Matt had to do fire watch every time they went to the field the entire time. Because well, they would put in some from what they told me, they would put in like maybe some senior dudes that weren't really up to par, or they didn't really like that much on the rotation as well. But for the most part, it was the 3 boots and each platoon doing the fire watch every single night. And fire watch, if you don't know, that's the watch that you do throughout the night while everybody's sleeping. So from you go to sleep like at what, 10 or something, and you wake up like at 5 or 4. So every hour needs to have somebody on watch, so you know the platoon doesn't get their throat slit. But yeah, it was divvied up between the 3 of them for like a month, and then they got another boot job, and then it was divvied up between the 5 or 6 of them, which isn't too bad because there's about like 8 hours of sleep that you get, so you can kind of divvy up most of the night that way. And then once they got the big boot drop, which was us, which was like fucking 30 dudes from a ITB class into one company, then it was pretty easy to get Firewatch divvied up to everybody. There was some nights we didn't even have to do Firewatch because there's so many people in the platoon. Like at that point, there was like a bunch of senior dudes leaving and then a bunch of new boots coming in. So like it was the ratio from senior to boots ended up flipping, and there were actually more boots than seniors in the platoon in the company that I was at, which worked out pretty well for me because just dealing with the amount of like senior lancers, I put that in quotations, that I had to deal with was enough, bro. I could not imagine dealing with that, like just me and 2 other dudes. And honestly, they told me stories, bro. Like I remember when we first came in and we saw them for the first time, like the other boots that were there before we were, bro, I swear they looked like hospital patients, bro. They were all bald. They looked inebriated or emaciated, whatever the word is. They looked starving. They looked scared. I was like, damn, bro, I don't want to be like that. But yeah, they have their own hazing stories. I'm just gonna say it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. Like kids were getting their hands put on them. Some people got told on, blah blah blah. Not my place to say, I feel like, but it was pretty bad. Besides that though, first week, you kind of just get put into your platoon. You get all your stuff. Like I said, we got kind of lucky. There were way more boots for us, so we kind of got thrown into rooms with other boots. Sometimes you don't get that option. I think the biggest takeaway for being a boot in the Marine Corps is just make sure that you are okay being yelled at. You're just like in boot camp all over again. Somebody tells you to do something, just do it right away, no problem. I Lance Corporal, IPFC. You might have to say that a few times, especially in the infantry, because dudes loved getting NJP'd. So you got dudes with 3-year good conduct medals, but they're private first classes. I was one of those. But besides that, I think it was the funnest for me because that's the time in the Marine Corps where all my friends were basically all together and we all just got yelled at together, which was pretty funny. Now coming back to it as a senior after my 2 deployments, nothing to brag about, just 2 mews, but after my 2 deployments we ended up getting our own boots. It was a different experience from the other side. I was playing the senior Lance Corporal part, and I was an ass sometimes. I don't think I was too much of an ass though. I definitely went up to them myself, to all the boots, and was like, hey man, you're a boot, you're gonna get yelled at, you're gonna get told to do push-ups, blah blah, you're gonna get told to run, blah blah, whatever. But if anybody ever puts their hands on you, you have every right to put your hands on the back, and if anything ever gets escalated beyond that, you can come get me. But like I was pretty fair, for the most part. I think I was a dick sometimes though, definitely was. There was one time where, since the boots were coming in, each boot was 2 boots were assigned to each room with 1 senior in it, because for some reason our first sergeant, we had a new first sergeant after our deployment, thought that as the senior lance corporals we would tell the boots if they were in their own room to not have TVs and to not have Xboxes and shit. Like I don't know why he thought that. Like I had an Xbox like the first 2 years I was there at least. But so to mitigate that, they had just the boots live with the seniors, which is dumb because then me and my friends just couldn't live together, which we would much preferred, instead of living with like a bunch of new dudes. And they probably didn't want to live with us either. I know I didn't want to live with any senior dudes when I was a boot. But I remember when they first got there, I was walking up to my door, and one of the new boots, he was coming to my room because he lived there as well, and he gets there before I do. He starts putting the key in the lock, and I'm standing behind him waiting for him to open the door, and his hand is shaking from trying to put in the key in the lock, and I'm just like, oh God, like I just felt so bad. I was like, bro, calm down. Like it's like it is that serious because you don't know it's not that serious until you're on the other side, and you don't know it's just a big joke until you're on the other side. Like it's not a big joke, but it's kind of a big joke. Like people are yelling at you, but nobody is actually like really like mad at you. The people that are actually mad at you are the people that let that shit get to their head and take it way too far. Definitely watch out for those people. But for the most part, like people are just playing a role. They just have to pretend to be mean because that's what they got taught while they were being introduced to the Marine Corps, and they don't know any better. But they don't hate you. They don't want to yell at you. You just got to do. You just got to do. Get yelled at because boots do stupid boot shit, and just got to get over with, right? So rite of passage. If I were to go back, I'd probably change that. I think looking back on it, it's a little bit dumb, but it's not like the worst thing in the world. It just instills discipline and a kind of like reaction that I don't know if you would be able to get if you had a more friendly vibe with your seniors, right? But besides that, guys, the fleet is pretty fun. It's the best. It's the better part of the Marine Corps. It's where you get all your freedom. It's where you start getting deployments, where you start doing stuff. You start going to different bases, and you start actually, being in the Marine Corps. So besides that, I have nothing else for you. If you guys like the video, make sure you hit that like button. If you're not subbed, hit that sub, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.